Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Hope everyone's enjoying this thing so far. I'm really honored and grateful to be part of it. So thank you, Jason, Zach, and all the other people at tinyhouse.com for organizing this thing and putting it on. And again, I appreciate the invite. As you've seen, I am talking about intentional living. And yeah, deep breath. It's a crazy, crazy time right now. Very scary time. And I mean, just so much uncertainty. Many of us are reduced down to, an existential place where we're worried about our next meal, have no idea where our next paycheck's coming from, and are focused on survival. It's just a crazy, crazy time. And there's a lot to be afraid of. And it's it's just natural. It's reasonable to have a lot of fear right now. But I think in every circumstance, there's a lot of opportunity, right? And we have control over so little, we control almost nothing. And, one of the silver linings of this is that this scenario reminds us of how little we truly control. But there is one thing every single one of us has total control over. And that's our perspective, the perspectives we choose to adopt and the ways that we respond to the circumstances and stimuli of our lives, right? We get to choose the meaning we give to things, and we get to choose, again, the perspective we take, whether it's positive, negative, self-pitying, anger. We can't control our emotions, but we get to control how we respond to those things. So I do know that in the midst of all this uncertainty, and trust me, I am feeling tremendous anxiety and stress. I don't know if I have a viable business in 6 months. I don't know if I'm going to have to reinvent myself entirely. I am by no means immune to just the madness of right now. Sorry, but I do know that there's love and there's beauty, and for all the fear that might drive us away from each other, I believe that there's no way for us to get through this, and I have a feeling it's going to last a lot longer than some of the people are predicting. But the only way for us to get through this really is together, is by cultivating and creating community. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we have here today as a community. And the tiny house community is such an incredible thing. Getting to what intentional living is, if I was to boil down a life, right, anybody's life into two things, it would be our relationships and our experiences. And I think the quality of one's life is inextricably linked to the quality of one's relationships and the quality of one's experiences. And this is a time where it's a very introspective time. And it's a time where we get to evaluate, if we're courageous enough, evaluate ourselves and our lives and, what gives us the most meaning, what gives us the most joy. And we definitely have an abundance of something right now that everybody I know is always complaining there's not enough of, and that's time. Not everybody does, but a lot of people have this commodity, that the only non-renewable resource on the planet, time. We have this precious thing right now. And I think, again, like I said, there's opportunity in every circumstance if we choose to find it and we choose to carve it out. And there is an opportunity right now to grow tremendously, to learn things we've wanted to learn for a long time, and to really move ourselves forward in our own evolution and our own development. Stop watching Netflix. Just eliminate your accounts. HBO Now, just stop doing it. I mean, it's easy to fall into that, but quit doing that. That is a waste of time. That will be there. It's going to go nowhere. And I encourage all of us, and this is myself included, is to really value and treasure this time, to be able to, again, look within, to evaluate one's own life, and to take action to do things that you've wanted to do and have been putting off. You know, yeah, I mean, the thing about community and about coming together is, I think if we recalibrate our focus to gratitude, to the things that we do have, to what we can do, and instead of focusing on what we can't do, and really focus on those who need it most, I think, again, that's the best action we can take. There are organizations, even people who are super financially stressed. There's still ways you can help. One organization that I love is called Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee. $1 donated is 4 meals. $1. Most of us can spare that, once a week. So anyway, what is intentional living? What does that mean to me? Tiny homes, and I'm going to give my story and how I got into tiny houses, which is all totally integrated with intentional living. But tiny homes are a very interesting thing because it's not just a product, it's not just a structure, it is a movement. What spawned tiny homes is it's a social movement based in a philosophy, and that philosophy is about the DIY ethos, taking control of creating what it is you want in a structure, sustainability, financial freedom, autonomy, just a new way of living, cultivating a life of experience instead of the acquisition of stuff, minimalism. And when I think of all of those values, principles, ideas, to me, those all fall under the umbrella of intentional living. So again, what is intentional living? So for me, and before I kind of get into my backstory of how I came to some of these conclusions, which were hard fought and spawned by a lot of failure and mistakes. To me, it's cataloging one's life. It's taking stock and naming one's values, right? Why you do what you do, what gives you meaning in your life. Simple terms, like a bullet point list of values. Cataloging one's life and one's actions, habits, and figuring out how you can daily align those things so that you are living your values, so that you know your values, you know how to live your values, you know how not to live your values, and understanding how you can achieve that daily, how you can live your values daily. It's a lot of work. It is absolutely a lot of work. And it is like life, a process for which there is no arrival. But it is the most meaningful, important, rewarding, and in many ways joyful and enjoyable work that I've ever done. Right? I think it's more important than anything I could ever do. And to me, what I've really learned is that the way for me to help people the most, the way for me to add the most value to other people's lives, to love the people in my life the best, to serve my clients and my community, is for me to take care of myself. It's for me to be aligned with myself and for me to be living my values, right? So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's hard work. It's catalog, it takes a lot of introspection. The way that, I got it. Part of it is takes carving out time for solitude, for stillness, journaling, writing out a lot of things, evaluating your life. It takes a lot of evaluation. So anyway, here's how I kind of got to that. So I chose out of college, I studied literature and philosophy. I wanted to be a writer, a novelist. And out of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do to earn a living. So I chose a life of experience over, any one career path. I realized pretty quickly that I like I can write sentences. I like the idea of writing, but the process of it made me miserable. Anyway, so I paid for school with a scholarship, so I had no debt, and I was able to go on this trip throughout Europe backpacking, and it was 7 months or so. Anyway, I was with my brother, Hugh Latimer, one of my favorite people on the planet, for about a month. I guess we traveled together, and that was really special. And then the rest of it, I was solo. Some triumphant, beautiful experiences, but it was brutal. It was a lot of work. Spending that much time alone in a foreign culture where you can't interact with many people. That is a journey of introspection. Anyway, after that, I was in New York for 2.5, 3 years. Worked in fashion, realized that I hate fashion. It's vain, it's conceited, it's self-absorbed, but I do like style, and style pervades all manner of living. I mean, you have a style even to how you talk, how you sleep, you have a style. Conscious and unconscious things. Style is got soul, it's got spirit, it's creativity, it's personal, it's universal. Anyway, I got burnt out in that lifestyle in New York, and so I wound up going to Africa for almost a year and worked with an orphanage, try to help expand it. I'm an idealist at my core, and that was a very brutal experience. But it was every adjective you could conjure. It was beautiful. It was triumphant. It was, it was unbelievable love, unbelievable inspiration, unbelievable community. But it was also awful. It was devastating and brutal, and made me realize how difficult and challenging it is to affect change in the world and to help people, especially across culture. One little message from that is I realized that the best way to help people in other cultures is not to tell them how much they should change their culture to adapt it to yours. It's to empower people to be who they are, to live as they've lived for hundreds or thousands of years. Anyway, sorry, side note. Came back from that, wound up moving to Chicago on a whim and stayed there for 6 years. I did a number of things in Chicago. I worked, I eventually got into design. I was in hospitality, food and beverage, and I eventually got into some design, working for a design build firm, Smart Mouth Designs. He's off the radar, but a great guy, Alex Morales, and doing some interiors for restaurants, bars, and nightclubs, like in a really trendy, cool area. So a lot of good exposure, a lot of good work there. But I was always managing restaurants and bars. So I eventually got to the point where I wanted to move back to Nashville. I'm born and raised in Nashville, to be near family, to be near friends. There were some things going on, but it was just time for me to come back and not be so far. I was gone from everybody for about a decade. So I moved back, had this opportunity to open a bar and restaurant, which had all the makings of a home run. Got to be involved with the interior design, and it was I was super excited about it. I was sweat equity partner, so I felt a great deal of ownership. The general manager, director of ops, and started off with a bang. It was really exciting, and it's one of the nicknames of this place, because everyone loved it. It could add all this potential. Is the Tiptanic? It's called the Music City Tippler, and it just awful. It became a total nightmare. It became an absolute perfect example of what not to do and who not to do it with. And the whole experience, coming back to Nashville, and I realized there was a lot of ego. Like, I wanted to have all my stuff together and have all the answers for when I came back to my hometown. And then having this very public failure, taking it very personally, which was not very productive in many ways, but it just floored me, and it made me. I felt humiliated. I felt embarrassed. I felt angry. I felt like a total failure, and it really just floored me, and it made me realize, like, I realized in the free time I had, like, in the uncertainty, I'm anxious all the time. But it's not just because of what's happened. I've been anxious all the time for a few years now. And so I just realized, like, I need to change. I don't know how I need to change, but I'm tired of the way I've been living. I realized that I don't love that work. I don't ever want to do that work again. I have to do something that is creative. I'm definitely an artist at heart. I think I want to do something in design and in structures. And I have to do something that helps people that's for a cause bigger than myself. So, I started just asking myself like this process. I started asking myself really tough questions, like, the question of what do you want to do? What are your values? And, some of them, of course, are love, are service, patience, wisdom, and I won't go into all of them, but how do I haven't been living this daily. I've been relegating this to my imagination or weekends or when it's convenient. How do I start to live these things daily? How do I start to live in a way where I am fulfilled and challenged to my core and my work that I'm doing, and in the relationships that I have and in the experiences I'm carving out. And so, again, I started journaling. I started reading different, self-help books. I started, just doing this process, started meditating. I started doing this process, trying things. Most things didn't work. Most things, maybe helped a little bit, or I gained a kernel of wisdom or something that was actionable. But it was this self-exploration. I started being really honest with myself about some of my behavior, some of my flaws. And a big part of that process is especially if you're a perfectionist and very hard on yourself, inherently is self-compassion, which is I'll be working on my whole life. But during that process, just doing that hard work and that introspective work, and seeking out resources and relationships. And there's something I'm forgetting that I wanted to put in here, but anyway, I'll keep moving forward. During that time, I came across the tiny house movement, or tiny houses as a concept and the movement. And this was probably 2014. So it was kind of established. It was a thing. I mean, Tiny House Nation existed. It was blowing up. If you looked at, just some of the data online, people were obsessed with it. But it was still kind of it was still in its infancy. And my father does affordable housing here in Nashville, has done so for 30 years, very respectable organization, nonprofit he has. But he saw them as an affordable housing mechanism. So he actually introduced me to them. And I instantly became obsessed. I was like, you mean there's a structure that I get to design and build myself that's on wheels and I can take it wherever I want to go, that forces me to get rid of all the superfluous shit in my life, crap in my life, both possessions, but also mentally and emotionally. This thing that, it can be an affordable housing mechanism, this thing that is a sustainable structure, very sustainable structure, that has new ways of creating community, that it forces me to carve out a life where meaning is an experience, and community and relationship instead of the acquisition of stuff. This mindless living, right? Which back to the whole intentional living, this mindfulness is this this thing of it's a process. It's not there's no arrival. There's no, you get there and all of a sudden everything is easy and simple and straightforward. So back to, so tiny homes. So wound up going to actually a tumbleweed, one of those classes where they taught you how to build, like a weekend seminar, and they taught you how to build a tiny house. Art, blanking on his last name, but a guy named Art, who's a wonderful human, he taught it. But what I came away with that is, with my father actually went, is oh, we can do this. Like, of course we can do this, and I had my first jobs in high school was, on a framing crew. And again, I worked building furniture and building some structures and doing a bunch, fine carpentry and doing build outs and again, big restaurants and nightclubs and things. So I had some knowledge, for sure. And I'd run projects and whatnot before. But a lot of gaps. I mean, mainly I have no idea what I'm doing. So we bought plans. We wound up building two tumbleweed structures because it was, they seemed quality when we wanted to learn what we liked and what we didn't like. And then, just wound up, did that. So I guess let me pause here is that, I realized in my introspective time, that I had been, I've been having these cool experiences in my 20s, and I'd been traveling and trying all these different careers and industries. But really underlying that in many ways was I was terrified to try something that I believed in and that I was really excited about and passionate about because I was scared of failing. So I avoided that. I was scared of failing, and I was scared of the cost, to myself personally of just going for it and trying it. So I got sick of that, and that was part of that introspective time is that I'm not doing that anymore. And I don't care if I'm going to make no money. I don't care if, what it takes. I'm going to do what I want to do when I'm passionate about. So even though I had a little bit of experience, I wasn't going in totally cold. I had no idea how to start a company. I had no idea how to run a construction company. I had no idea. I had no idea how to design a house other than in my head. And so, I finally decided in that time, I was resolved to, again, live my principles and my values and to do what I love and to try to live, incorporate these things, these passions into my daily living. Again, instead of relegating them to, some future date that never comes today. And I just went for it. I just said, I don't know how to do this, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do everything I can to figure it out. Wow, it's gone very quick. So anyway, and I'll tell you what's happened since then is, I've felt like a failure many times. I have failed a countless number of times. But I've never quit going, and I've never quit getting back up. And, I've just said, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to keep pushing. And I feel like when you commit yourself, to this mission or to a cause or to some purpose, something that gives you great purpose, I feel like the universe opens doors for you. And there were the most important relationships I developed professionally, the most important opportunities that came my way. I could never have planned those. I could never have done anything to have created those things and to have made those opportunities possible. And I think what I've learned, I've grown so much. My self-respect has grown so much. My gratitude, my sense of gratitude, which is, I would say that's number one. I'll come back to that in a second, but has increased so much. And anyway, all this to say that, I think with intentional living, and I want to touch on that, the best single practice that each of us can do, and we are all capable of doing this every morning, and I'm talking to myself first and foremost here, is to cultivate and practice gratitude. One of the simplest little things I've done that has helped me is gratitude journaling every morning, is forcing myself, even when I feel terrible and angry and can't stand myself or can't, or just feel helpless or whatever it is to list things that I'm grateful for, and to express that gratitude. That has done wonders for me. So anyway, what I encourage each of you to do is to take stock of this time, to take advantage of this time, and to really sit down and do this work. Again, to sit down and to write out your values and to analyze your life and to reflect on your life. And some of us, can only take small action. Some of us may take dramatic action. We're all in different circumstances, but every one of us can do that. And like I said, it is a process. It is something to practice. It is something to carve out time, even if it's 10 minutes every morning or 10 minutes every evening or whenever works for you. Each of us can take action towards that. And, again, it's something that I fail at all the time. It's something that I fail to live my values all the time. And most important, it's just remember that it is a process, right? I'm going to do a Q&A today at 3 p.m. I would love to hear your questions. A couple real quick things. I'm New Frontier Tiny Homes is my company. Sorry, I'm the CEO and founder of New Frontier. We're going to be doing some different things. We want to be creating content soon. We want to create community and experience. The first opportunity of that is going to be called Stay New Frontier. It's a tiny house hotel we're working on here in Nashville. Please follow us on Instagram. You can go to our website. There at the bottom, there's a place to sign up for the email list. I would love to hear from you. What kind of content, what kind of information, what kind of knowledge that we can give to you that adds value to you and that answers questions or inspires you or gives you resources. Again, thank you so much for joining today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I would love to see you at the Q&A at 3 p.m. And I wish you all the very best. I send you all the best energy in dealing with this thing. We can do it. Let's do it together.